Once we've got all of our displaced elements in their respective positions, what we can do is do sort of some graphical housekeeping here and make sure this is going to be a clean and easy to read diagram. So I'm just going to go through each of these, and you can follow along by changing the materials. So I know this will be a little bit longer of a tutorial, but you can pause and play as you go ahead and change some of these elements here. So the first thing is the foundation. Let's take a look at this. The color is actually really good. The concrete color is nice as a default. We're going to keep that, and all of the concrete, including the structure. But what we need to change is the view type. So we're going to change this to a consistent colors visual display, or visual style, and that will allow us to read it a little bit easier from farther away than the shadows or the shaded mode will. So once that's done, let's go ahead and take a look at the lot here. Now this is fine. The white with the black lines is really nice, but you might want to take your property lines here and sort of nudge them so that they read a little bit easier from far away. Now you would never really do this. You would never change the property lines in this manner, but for our purposes, it's totally fine, so that when we're reading it this far, we're not going to notice that there's a foot difference. We can actually read this a little bit better. Now, you might also want to take 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever to edit this boundary and make sure that this is done correctly. Now, for instance, here I didn't. I included in the sort of part that's scooped out of the lot the mechanical and the courtyard, but I would probably go through and edit that here so that it didn't get included, so I get a better idea of the actual footprint of the building. But I'm not going to do that for right now. Other than that, the lot is fine. So let's take a look at the structure. There's a couple things we have to change here, but they're all steel. It's all of the steel elements, but each of the steel elements might need to be changed in individually. So let's take a look at the columns first. So I'm going to hover over the displacement set and hit tab, and I can select one of these steel columns. Now we can go over here and we can actually change this material, but really we don't need to change the steel material, we just need to change the color. So we're going to, under graphics, we're going to not use the render appearance, and we're going to change the color to 170, 136, 136. Hit OK, and you can see that all of the columns should have changed. Now that's going to change everything that has that material. So if you have a different column with a different material, it's not going to change it. You have to go ahead and find that column and change it. But I think all of the HSS columns should use that A992 steel. So the next thing that we'll do is take a look at the beams. And here this uses a different steel. It's a A500. You're going to do the same thing. I've actually saved that color here, so I'm going to hit apply. And there you can see most of our steel is done. The last thing we have to do is take a look at the joists, so I can tab over here. Now this is a little bit different. We can't change the material here in the type properties. We actually have to hit it and change it in the the instance parameters. We need to change it in the type properties. So I hit edit type there, and we can change the structural material to either one of these two. It doesn't really matter. And that will take a second to load. And then you'll see that all of the joists turn this rose color. Now you'll notice that the webbing doesn't necessarily show up unless you go to a fine mode. Now when we get further away, it won't really matter, but I would probably recommend actually going to a medium mode so we can read the webs a little bit better. And that is our structure all done. So once we're done with that, we can focus on mechanical. Now in mechanical system, in the mechanical systems, we have to change 3 things. We have to change the cooling towers, we have to change the AHUs, and we have to change the return runs. So what we need to first do is hover over one of these cooling towers, hit tab, and here's the same process as the joists. We need to edit the type and change the tower material to a new material, but we don't have this material yet. So I recommend going to a default material, right-clicking and duplicating it, and renaming it mechanical schematic. Now once that's done, we need to go to the appearance, and this little This hand with the number means it's sharing its appearance with 13 other things. So we're going to duplicate this asset. And now it's sharing with 0. It's a unique material, and we can go ahead and change the color to 215 across the board. And again, don't use the render appearance. You can hit apply there, and now once we hit apply, you can see that because it was the type properties, it changed everything with that type. So let's go ahead and change the AHU now in the same way, but we don't need to edit a new material. We can just take that mechanical schematic and apply it. So the last thing we have to do is change the return run here. And we might change that to the supply depending on how these are starting to turn out, but the process is the same. Rather than going through and changing each of these elements and changing the family types and all that stuff, what we can do is we can go to the family drop down here on the project browser, and we can scroll down to where we have duct systems, and now we can actually right click one of these duct systems and edit the type properties. And here you can see that the material override can be changed to the same material as the that light gray of the machines, and then your whole system will change to that color. So here, if we tab over, you just have to make sure that you've modeled these rather diligently, that the system types are return error and supply error respectively, and then you'll get a diagram that looks like this. So then once the mechanical is done, let's go ahead and pay attention to the architecture. Now the architecture tends to be maybe the trickiest part, the least straightforward, because there are a lot of elements that we need to change. But we'll just go through these one by one and change them. So I'm going to select everything here, and we're going to filter out just the walls. So I just want to be paying attention to the walls here. What we need to do though is we need to shift click the curtain walls, because we don't want to change the aesthetic of the curtain wall system. We want this blue to remain the same. So again, shift click all of the curtain wall systems, and then it won't change the material overrides. Once you have that done, you can right click on one of the walls that is still selected, and you can override the graphics in the view by element. We don't want to do by category because we have walls other places in the displaced view. So once we get to this, we can change this pattern to a solid fill, and we can change the color to, again, 215 down the board. And then once we hit OK there, you can see that now we have all of our walls are this light gray. The next step is to do this for your mullions as well. So let's go ahead and select this. Oops. And you can do this a couple ways. You can right click, select all of the mullions, or you can just select over all of them, and all you want to do is select the curtain wall mullions, right click, override graphics in view by element. You can actually do it by category here, since these are the only mullions. It will change those as well. We can change this to a 215. And there you go. So the last thing we have to change here are the floors. So what we're going to do is select everything once again, filter out just the floors, and we need to right click on one of the floors and override the graphics in view by element. We need to change this to a solid fill, and we're actually going to change this to a white. And we can hit apply there, and now you can see that all of your floors have changed here. The last bit of housekeeping on the architecture is to just pay attention to what's going on here with the floors. Now, the way that we're advertising or showing you how to do this, you might get some lines here between your concrete and your steel systems. You can put a new floor in there, hide it in all the other views, but this is totally fine. If you have like a line there that goes between the floors, that's totally okay. It's just going to start to be a time sink. So it's up to you if you want to add a new floor quickly. You can also be diligent about some of these things where I have my floor which kind of goes into the wall. You can edit the boundary, or you can just use you can go to architecture, modify and join, and you'll have to go into another 3D view. Whoops. Let's go to default 3D view here. And we can join the walls to the floors. We can do the same thing here. And we can do it over here. It might be harder to find. Oh, that one's already joined. So we can join it again. And now if we go back to our displaced view, you can see there's a line there. It's really subtle, but again, if you have some time to spare, that might be a good thing to go through and do, and then you'll be pretty much done with your displaced view. Before I conclude this tutorial, I'll show you one more tool, and that is the Displaced Line tool. Now if I select one of these displacement sets, you can see that up here I can edit, I can reset it, so I can put it back down to where it came from. Or I can add these displacement paths. Now if I hover over an element, you can see that these lines are sort of created here. And what I would recommend doing is just going from the top to the lot and the bottom to the lot. Otherwise you get a lot of weird lines here, and then slowly add some lines for maybe the mechanical system, like the cooling towers. And you can also, this is one of the benefits of having this horizontal displacement set from a vertical displacement set, is that you can put the lines onto the shading system like this, if you have a shading system like this. And you can always edit these, you can delete these, and just play around with it, see what looks best. It might just be the corners. You can also go from the top to the bottom, but yeah, this might go here and this might go here, so you can see that that lines up. And then we can do one from the foundation as well. And again, you can see that these are sort of not quite lining up, or they're getting a little bit cluttered, so you can start to really be selective about it. And there, that one lines up nicely, and that one lines up all right, and we'll do that one as well. So that's probably what I would do. I would just focus on a few of these displacement lines, and just going through and making sure that you have a, that one was probably wrong, a clean diagram that's not too cluttered. There we go, and then go to an isometric view. So the next view, or the next tutorial, will show you how to print this to a certain size and get it to an image file.